Hello and welcome to the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer. I am the host of, obviously, the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. And I'm here today to talk to you about the risk of weight loss for events. Now, before we get started, I'm going to let you know that I am the founder of Total Weight Care Institute. I'm also the founder of the Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Physician Group, which is a group of dedicated physicians who provide telemedicine weight care primarily to provide access to safe and effective and affordable GLP-1s for those people, particularly those people who've been cut off from um, getting a life-saving medication because it is life-saving. So I talk about anything health, wellness, and weight care related. I have been doing weight-related care for 15 years. I've been using GLP-1s for 15 years, so I'm pretty well versed in their use. And but I like to talk about everything. So I use a biopsychosocial approach, which basically means I pay attention to the biology. I pay attention to the psychology and the sociology of pretty much anything that goes on with the human condition. So I like answering questions. For those of you who've been here before, you know that I really love to educate, and we'll do that again tonight at the end with a Q&A. So if you are here, get your questions ready because we will talk about things. It could be about this topic or something I've talked about before or something new. I also learn as much as I educate. So I'm always happy to get questions. So if you're listening right now, tell me your name and where you're listening from. And if you're watching later, put in your name again and hashtag replay. Always like to know where my audience is. So welcome, welcome. So, I want to talk about the risk of weight loss for events. I mean, we're in the middle of prom season for one thing. We're getting close to wedding season is another. We're going into the warm weather in the northern parts of the United States. And so everyone's getting ready for their planning their beach vacations and all the like. And when that happens, many of us, I mean, no one's been immune, and myself included, we start trying to think about how we want to look in bathing suits, in dresses that we're going to wear to events. This is also the time for reunions. So, people who you haven't seen in 10, 20, 30 years. And so you're like, oh gosh, I want to look my best. And so um, often what happens is that we start resorting to extreme behaviors in order to get fit into a dress, look a certain way, feel comfortable in a bikini, whatever the reason. And we've all done it. I mean, we're not immune. Nobody's immune to this. However, there are risks. There are absolutely risks. Mainly because when we are motivated by an event like that, one, the motivation is external. We're not trying to feel a certain way, but we're trying to look a certain way for validation from other people. And that's a very dangerous setup, for one. Two, we tend to resort to pretty extreme behaviors, which can cause some long lasting, irreversible health issues. And so I want to talk about those today. Um, and so basically, the main risk is that the extreme behaviors pretty much trigger our brain into thinking something's wrong, that there's something it needs to protect us from. And so when our brain thinks it needs to protect us from something, it tries to remember the events that led up to it. And so it stops it from happening again. So our brain, like I've mentioned many times before, does two things. Well, the main thing for our brain to do is to keep us alive. We are organisms, and it's our brain's job to make sure we stay alive and recreate and procreate as that organism. So when we do things that go against that, our brain makes note and tries to stop it. Starvation is one of those things. When we starve ourselves, when we do extreme diets, when we drop our calories extremely low, our brain sees it as starving and therefore starts to slow everything down. What our brain says is, okay, if you're not going to eat enough, what I'm going to do is make sure you don't need as much to live. And so it slows your metabolism down because that's essentially what our metabolism is. It's the burning off of food that we've eaten. And so when our brain does that, however, it doesn't necessarily stop doing that when those behaviors can no longer be sustained, because they can't be sustained. it can only last for so long before your body's drive to make you eat comes back. There's always this rebound. And so what happens is that when we rebound, our brain says, well, you were just starving. So now I'm going to take that food you've just eaten and turn it to fat, store it so that if this happens again, we've got extra. So the problem is, though, you lose weight. And unfortunately, that weight loss is water, fat, and muscle. But when you gain it back, you only gain back fat. And so your body composition shifts. And when your fat to muscle ratio shifts, your health shifts right along with it. And that's why extreme dieting is not successful. That's why it is not advisable. And that's why it causes long term risk because it shifts your body's composition. But the other part of this that happens is the psychological impact of sort of putting yourself in a position where, again, where external gratification, external validation becomes so important. So that when all of the sudden, when you are no longer able to maintain this weight loss because it is not sustainable for life, it's dangerous, your body doesn't like it, your brain doesn't like it, and so pretty much drives you to eat at some point, usually to binge at some point. But what that does when you're unable to maintain it, it creates a psychological feeling of failure. And when you have that feeling of failure, again, it doesn't go away. What it does is that it makes it so that the next time you try to do something, you're going to think, I can't do it because the last time I tried, I failed. When the process could be so totally different that this time could be much better because it's being done in a different way. However, when you've done this over and over and over again, apart from the physiologically being more difficult to lose weight the next time you try, no matter how you try, the psychological impact of trying to lose weight or trying to get healthy and your brain doesn't believe it, and your brain's like, I don't know, until I have proof that this is ongoing and this is sustainable, I'm not going to let any of this fat budge, because the last time I did that, next thing I knew, I was being starved again. So we're not going to let that happen. um But it also ties our success to a number, when in fact, what any type of weight management program should be is tied to health. And I know it's very difficult because we live in a world where thinness is considered a currency, where everyone, thinness is considered ideal and attractive. And so we tend to focus on size as opposed to health when it comes to, weight management, when in fact size isn't always healthy. I mean, like I've always said, you can be thin from drugs. Doesn't mean you're healthy. Many times people are thin from maladaptive behavior, so it doesn't mean they're healthy. So, you know, but the thing is, though, is that when these behaviors are ongoing, which they can't be, mostly because they're not sustainable, your brain can shift permanently. It changes the way your brain behaves and it changes what your brain allows your body to do. And therefore, again, it's ongoing and it can be irreversible. The other is that irreversible is that muscle. When you lose muscle in the process, you set yourself back, often by months, for health maintenance. Um, so again, when you I've talked about the biological effect. The psychological effect, of course, is setting yourself up for failure, making yourself feel like a failure, becoming a slave to a number on a scale, and so letting your moods get attached to what the scale does, whether it goes up or whether it goes down. When in fact, there's so many things can involve that mean absolutely nothing in terms of life and health and how things should be. And so it's a setup for disordered eating. It's a setup for disordered behavior. And and so um and again, the social part of this is when you're looking for social gratification, like you're saying, you're going to an event, you want to look a certain way, you want to feel a certain way, you want to impress a certain person. That often happens when it comes to reunions. Um, and you're looking for that external gratification. You are relying on somebody else's reaction to you to give you a feeling that you want. That is extremely dangerous. It's psychologically dangerous and it's socially dangerous because what it does, it also means that you are vulnerable to manipulation. You're vulnerable to um, suggestion that may not be beneficial for your health. It puts you at risk for protecting yourself psychologically and physically. So, again, not a healthy thing to do. Um, and so I often hear, yeah, but it works. Well, if it isn't maintained, if you cannot sustain the change, it didn't work. Working means that you have a change and you're able to keep that change. If you're not able to keep that change, then it's not working. You might get a temporary result that you're seeking, but in the long run, it hurts you so badly that you'll end up having more difficulty later because what happens again, you lose the weight and then you can't maintain that behavior that helps you lose the weight because how you lose your weight is how you keep it off. And so if you cannot keep it off through the same behavior in which you lost it, that weight comes back, it swings to the other side and you gain it back as fat and then it becomes even harder to lose the next time because you've lost muscle. You've lost the powerhouse behind your metabolism. And when you lose the powerhouse behind your metabolism and your metabolism suffers, every single bit of food you eat goes to making fat. So again, um, it it it's temporary and it's unhealthy and it can be permanently unhealthy. And so the best thing to do is one, to plan ahead. If you know that something's coming up, you know next year you're getting married, you know next year, you know that you're going to a wedding, somebody in your family's getting married or whatever. You know a year from now you're going to be going to a graduation. You know when your reunions are. You know what year you graduated. You know when your 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 year your graduation reunions are happening. Well, start planning. Start with a healthy process of healthy eating, preferably plant based, clean eating, 3 meals a day. That's protein and fiber forward. Drink your water, get your sleep, keep your stress levels down and your cortisol levels down, and then start building muscle. Create the powerhouse behind what your metabolism needs so that the food you eat is used appropriately. And so you can do it slowly so that way it fits into your life, it fits into your lifestyle, and you're not setting yourself up for injury. But the other is that when you do it slowly and you do it properly and you do it in a way so that you can sustain it for the rest of your life. So you can do these things and you can keep going and you get better at it and it has more benefit. Not just for the weight loss and for the looking a certain way for your reunion, but for the rest of your life and for your next reunion. Um, and so, yeah. Um, and I've lost my train of thought, which happens from time to time when you speak from experience and not always from notes. But anyway, let me see what I'd written. Nope, not written down, just coming off the top of my head. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining from North Carolina. Yolanda from New York City. And Marcia from Barbados. Thank you for being here. I don't know who EA is, but thank you for coming. And then Margie said, I've experienced that, and the fat seems to be so stubborn. It is absolutely stubborn. The reason is also is that when you, I just remembered what I was going to say. When your body goes through these transitions because you shift from fat, from muscle, you lose muscle and then you gain it back as fat. It also sets you up for chronic disease. It changes your metabolic status. So you can go from being not diabetic to suddenly having insulin resistance. You could go from uh, having insulin resistance and now you've become pre-diabetic. You can go from becoming diabetic to being pre-diabetic to being diabetic. It can change how your body now metabolizes everything. It can change your metabolic status. And so it changes your health parameters. And so what you could have done before that worked, it won't work the next time. And if that happens, if you're going through a process and you're like, well, the last time all I had to do was XYZ, it won't happen this time. Something in your health status has changed and you need to get that checked out. Because what that means is you lost muscle the last time. And so when people say it's stubborn fat means no muscle. And that means simply that your metabolism has been affected. And so you have to work on your metabolism, not weight loss, not even fat loss, on building your metabolism back, building your metabolic status back. That is most important because that's going to affect your health in the long run. Do it now while you're still able, while you're young enough, healthy enough, mobile enough to still do it. So, can you elaborate on the brain's reaction when you lose weight the wrong way? Can things be reversed back? Yes, they can be. However, okay, so what happens when you lose weight the wrong way? Your brain thinks you're starving. It's a very, you starve and you lose fat, but you also lose muscle and you lose water. Like I said, when you lose weight the wrong way, you lose it in fat, muscle, and water. When you're unable to sustain it because it's too extreme for your life, for health, for your lifestyle, you gain it back, but you gain it back as fat. So you've lost water, muscle, fat, and gain it back only as fat. And so what happens is your fat to muscle ratio climbs. When your fat to muscle ratio climbs, so your health goes down and your metabolism goes down. And the only way to get it back is to start working on building muscle. However, you have less muscle, so it doesn't build. You've lost muscle. You've lost muscle mass. So you have to do two things: work on resistance training, which helps build muscle, while also eating a very protein heavy diet. Because what we eat becomes organs in our body. What we eat becomes part of our body. What we drink becomes part of our body. So water, we're mostly water. So everything, all the water we drink goes into our cells to plump us up and keeps all of our chemical reactions working the way they're supposed to. And that's why dehydration makes you sluggish and makes you sleepy and gives you headaches, because you're losing volume of your cells, particularly your brain cells, and brain doesn't like it. But when you eat fat, our body takes fat, breaks it down into fatty acid, and those fatty acids are actually used to make hormones. And they're used to line nerves so that our nerves work more efficiently. And other parts of our body also use fat as like padding and all sorts of things, or an insulation, and like our nerves use it for insulation, our body uses it for insulation for keeping us warm. But it's protein that gets used to make muscle. Our protein is what gets broken down to amino acids, and then our body makes muscle from it. Minerals and vitamins. Now, vitamins are used to help drive chemical reactions in our body. They're called catalysts. And some vitamins and minerals combine to get absorbed better in the body. And some vitamins and minerals are used to support our bones, to support our cartilage, to support our hair growth, even though hair technically is dead and our fingers are dead, but our hair roots are not dead. And our finger roots are not dead. There's still cells in there that are, regenerating. So I hope that answers your question, but it is a lot harder to bring it back than to not lose it in the first place. And I'm going to repeat that. It is much harder to regain muscle than it is not to lose it in the first place. Long-standing problems from muscle loss are weakness, are is poor health because again, your fat is more prevalent than your muscle. It affects your mobility later. One of the biggest issues, the biggest health issues as we get older is falling and breaking a hip. Most people die within 6 months of breaking a hip. If you can't maintain your balance because you don't have enough strength to keep your balance, then you're going to fall more easily and you're more likely prone to breaking a hip. If you've eaten poorly and you've lost muscle, more likely you've also lost minerals, and your bones get demineralized to help provide the calcium that your body needs. Our body needs calcium for our heart contraction, for our muscle contraction, for our brain function. And so when our body's not getting it enough through food, it will take it from our muscle and from our bone. And so our bones become brittle and fragile. If we don't eat enough fat in our body, in our diet now, our body can't make the hormones that are necessary in order to maintain our bones and maintain our heart muscles and all the rest. So yes, you can reverse it, but it's just you have to, it takes a lot more work. It takes more work to reverse it than sustain it. Is vitamin C good for bones? Vitamin C is good for iron absorption and skin. The best for your bone is vitamin D and calcium. It's vitamin D that you need in order to, our vitamin D. So we have what's called a parathyroid hormone, which helps our body absorb calcium. But vitamin D and calcium go hand in hand. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals that go hand in hand. So you have vitamin C and iron. Now, iron is required. Vitamin C is required for iron to get absorbed, and vitamin D is required for calcium to get absorbed. And then you have B12, which helps with a form of um, is tied to intrinsic factor, which is something in our gut, and acid has to do with acid from our stomach. But so vague description to explain that B12 is really, really important for blood development. So is iron. So vitamin C and iron and vitamin B12 and folic acid are all really good for blood and blood development. And so all of those things need to be absorbed and be eaten. And if not eaten, then taken as supplements in order to maintain one's blood integrity. Okay. Any other questions? No? Well, if you have questions later, you can always write to me at help@drtumor.com. I'm going to put it in the comments. Help. And if you found any of this helpful, then what you can do is share with your friends and family. Have them subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's always very helpful. And also, there are many other videos like this in my YouTube channel under the live tab. Some are also in the regular video tab, but most of them are under the live tab. So if you are looking for information, you can go back there and search for it. And so I just ask that you subscribe and like my videos. The more views I get, the better. And, and then share them on your pages with your friends, with your family, wherever. And write to me if you have questions and you want them to be answered. I'll either answer them directly then, or I will do a video to answer them. The other is that if you write in the comments of the videos, I'll also see them and I will answer them there as well. All right. So again, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, and thank you for listening. And I will see you next Tuesday for Dr. Toomer Talks. Good night.